much concern around this topic of childhood vaccination are you seeing among blended families? Is this a serious point of contention for a lot of families, or is it okay in most situations?
Well, in my opinion, like as it is, parenting is a really delicate balance between being an art and being a science. And for as long as what's best for the kids can be interpreted by different people in different ways, there's always going to be an opportunity for conflict to arrive, especially in co parenting relationships. But when you really zoom out and reflect on how contentious the nature of the to vaccinate or not to vaccinate debate has been historically, not even in the context of COVID, and then you stir in the fact that life as we know it for the past 2 years has been pretty significantly disrupted, it comes as no surprise that this is a really polarizing issue that parents and non-parents have to navigate.
Now, I think what's concerning for a lot of people here is there really isn't a middle ground here. You either get the kids vaccinated or you don't. And, I understand when there are times to compromise, but in this case, it's pretty black or white. And for parents on both sides of the debate, they view it as this is about the health of their child. Whether you're pro-vaccine or against it, this is about the health of your child, which is incredibly precious. So what are some strategies to work through a disagreement when really it's a zero-sum argument?
Mm-hmm. I think the answer to your question is within the question, right? You really hit the nail on the head by saying that both parents view this as being about the health of their child, which is very precious to each of them, regardless of which side of the spectrum they fall on. So if you really distill the arguments that both parents are using, right, both by folks who choose to vaccinate and folks who choose not to vaccinate, you'll realize that both sides are essentially fighting for the same thing. And when you really think about it further, most parenting decisions are binary like this. It's either, they play football or they don't play football. They go to private school or they don't. They go on their class trip to Europe or they don't. You're going to be able to find an argument to support both sides. So with all things, especially in co-parenting relationships, the key to really arriving at a conclusion that hopefully ends with both parents feeling satisfied with their decision is to keep the best interests of the child at the center of the decision-making process. Because when it turns into a war of which parent gets to win the battle, then it's not the other parent who loses, it ends up being the kids.
Yeah, that's so often the case in co-parenting and divorced families. It becomes less about the interest of the child and more about winning and losing and the power struggle. So how would you recommend approaching the conversation with your co-parent if you don't want to escalate things? How do you frame the ask, whatever it is you're asking for?
Mm-hmm. So I want to kind of build on my last answer by restating that, the best interest of the kids needs to be placed at the center, which we say we can understand when we're not in a super emotional state, right? But when we're in the heat of the moment, that might feel like a hard thing to reach for. So I understand that when someone's really passionate about a decision like this one, and when someone is certain that their way is the right way, there's a tendency to really want to grasp onto that and hold on to that with all of your might. But if you go into a conversation like this with your co-parent with the sole intention of proving the other parent wrong, making the other parent wrong, winning the argument, then you've already lost. So instead, if you start the conversation by listening, and I mean really listening, right? Not listening to try and figure out what you're going to say in response. But if you hear what the other parent has to say, that old cliche that you catch more bees with honey couldn't be more fitting. So entering these conversations with your guard lowered, setting the tone by leading with curiosity rather than defensiveness, you might be really surprised at what ends up happening for you.